Hello, people of God. This is Prophetess Dion Marie bringing a word about forgiveness. And so, if anyone ever read the story of Joseph and his brothers, which is found in Genesis, maybe 36, chapter 36 to 50, you read about Joseph's journey. And in his journey, his brothers were extremely jealous because he was his father's favorite child. And really, he was in love with his mother, and he was forced to marry the other woman. But so yes, her children was basically, he was in love with the woman, and he was crazy about the children. And not that he didn't love his other children, but there was some level of favoritism. And it was obvious when you read it, his sons were pretty mischievous and always getting into trouble. So he always had Joseph check on them to make sure they were behaving. And so, they basically plot to kill their brother. And they fought among that. And then one brother said, no, let's not do that because he's our brother. But when that brother wasn't looking, they sold him into slavery for 20 pieces of silver. And so in that process, of course, he went through so much adversity, being a slave, because he had to pay off the 20 pieces of silver. And then he was falsely accused of being about to rape a woman that he was, in the household that he was serving. And then he was thrown into jail. So I know everyone knows the story. He was thrown into jail. They had him work there, but, he was there for so many years. And he finally was lifted up out of jail after being forgotten by the baker whose head was lifted up, or the baker who was restored out of jail and back to, or was it the, or was it the person? No, it wasn't the baker. The baker died. It was the one that served his drinks, his armor bearer. He's the one that was restored, or his cupbearer. I apologize. So Joseph had translated their dreams, and it came to pass. And so when Pharaoh had a dream, the cupbearer remembered Joseph. So he was lifted up, but it was literally before, and as that went on, Joseph ended up, his brothers came when the famine came, because Joseph interpreted the king's dream that there was going to be a famine. So by the time Joseph seen his brothers, from the time they sold him up to the time they came looking for food, because there was a famine in the land, it was 22 years. 22 years, his brothers, who were basically his enemies, came back, looking for food. And they did not recognize him because God lifted him up. They did not recognize him right away. But one thing about Joseph, and I wrote down a few of the, not really a lot of things, but he kind of tested them. He tested them to see what kind of people they were. Did they really change? Because they weren't like these great brothers. Besides the fact they were jealous of him, pardon me, they did a few things that were really evil and wrong. One of the older brothers slept with one of his father's wives. I mean, like, they were doing like some odd things like that. The other brothers, they killed, they killed like this man when they told these people, look, there's peace between us. They killed these people. And so they were always, into something, doing something they had no business doing. And so they were really giving, it was hardship on a parent when children are doing what they shouldn't do. But Joseph kind of tested their spirits, see if they really changed. And, he spoke with them harshly. He called them spies because, they kind of did that. They kind of spied out a land and killed the people. He imprisoned them for 3 days, but then he took them out because he knew that the family was hungry. So he gave them food and sent them along the way. But he kept one brother, and I think that was the brother that instigated, selling him off, wanting to kill him at first, and then saying, put him in a pit, and then after that sold him into slavery. So it was an instigator there that was really pushing to do evil to him. And they all agreed except for one, which was Reuben. And so he kept one in prison while he sent the other back. But at the end of it, after the end of it, he reveals himself because they had to go back a couple of times. And then he said, look, bring my father back. He kept the younger brother with him. And at the end of it all, he blessed them. He blessed them, he revealed to them who he was. He cried. He blessed them with good land, with things that they need, food. He said, I'll take care of you. Don't worry about anything. They got clothes. They got the best of everything. But of course, his younger brother, which was the brother by his mother, he, of course, blessed him even more because that was his brother. The others were his half-brothers. But when the father died, they were afraid that Joseph was going to hold a grudge and really make them pay for all the evil that they've done to him. And this is what I like about Joseph. And I'm going to read Genesis 50 and 15. He's comforting his brothers. And when they saw that his brothers died, they said, what if Joseph bears a grudge? Then he will repay us for all the evil that we did to him. So they sent word to Joseph, and they said, well, our father said before he died, he commanded that, he said to say to Joseph, please forgive the transgressions and sins of your brothers, for they did you wrong. And so Joseph, please forgive the transgressions of the servants of God of your father. And when their message came back to him, he wept. He cried. And then he reassured those who did him wrong. He reassured them. This is amazing because it shows the heart of God. They should have been comforting him. We're so sorry. This is that and the other. But he's comforting them. He said, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? To me, that's deep. He's even saying, I'm not in the place of God to make you really pay for what you've done to me. He may have tested them, but he wasn't set out. He did not set out to make them pay. Okay, so testing someone to see if they're honest versus making someone pay for something, that's evil. And he said, I'm not in the place of God. Am I in the place of God? As for you, what you intended against me for evil, God intended for good, in order to accomplish a day like this, to preserve the lives of many people. Therefore, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. So Joseph reassured his brothers and spoke kindly to him. Now that is forgiveness.